Welcome back from the break, everyone. I'm Wendy TELEKI. I'm the head of the Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative, which is housed at the World Bank. And we work through the various multilateral development banks around the world to support women entrepreneurs in about 80 countries now. And we've been very excited to be rolling out the We Finance Code with many of you and with the Financial Alliance for Women. We have OECD in the room as well who we'll be working with. And it's been a really exciting journey for us. I remember 2 years ago at the summit where we talked about the planning we were doing, the thinking, the framing for the code, getting feedback from all of you on what the code might look like as we roll it out. Last year we launched in the Dominican Republic during the summit. So the summit has a very special place in my mind for the We Finance Code. I wanted to take a couple of minutes first for those of you who are uninitiated into what the We Finance Code is to explain a little bit about the code, and then we'll talk to some of the countries that are really leading the effort to roll this out in their countries. So if we can pull up the slides, I can share a little bit about the code. So the code is based on something that was initiated before the pandemic here in the UK called the Investing in Women Code. And it's essentially a commitment by financial institutions that's voluntary, but to do 3 things within their financial institution. First, each institution that signs on to the code needs to identify a leader in their organization who will be the champion for that organization to support women entrepreneurs in their work. So the products and services, and also to think about how the organization itself should be supporting women in their work, much like all of you are doing here. The second commitment that financial institutions make when they sign on to the code is to take actions that will improve the way they're serving women entrepreneurs. I don't need to say much more about that in this audience because that's what we've been talking about all day yesterday and we'll continue to talk about all day today. It's what kinds of non-financial services, financial services, and other products can we develop to support women entrepreneurs in their markets. And the third is data. We have 5 indicators that through the code, the financial institutions agree to report on the number of women entrepreneurs served, the volume of funding going to women entrepreneurs, the level of deposits saved by women-led businesses, the level of approvals and non-performing loans. So the institutions that sign on to the code, we ask to commit to collecting and reporting that data on an anonymized basis. If we go to the next slide, the way that we're rolling out the code globally is at a country level, and we ask in each country to really build coalitions, including the various parts of the financial sector ecosystem. And as you can see here, that includes working with the financial sector regulators. We also ask, for each of these groups to try to have one national champion, so somebody who really is going to be leading the conversation for the country from this perspective. So the financial sector regulators are one. The data aggregators, the organization that would be collecting data and helping to analyze and understand the data. The financial service providers themselves. And of course, we start with banks, but we also look to bring in venture capital funds, fintechs, microfinance institutions, and others who might be serving the women entrepreneurs market. And then also investors and other stakeholders that are engaged in supporting women entrepreneurs and in supporting financial inclusion. And in each country, there will be an entity that coordinates the code. And we'll hear a little bit about how different some of the existing countries are managing that. It can be a different part of the member of the ecosystem who's doing the coordination work. So if we go to the next slide, this is where we're at in terms of building the coalition and the rollout of the We Finance Code globally. We, of course, are working with our partners, the multilateral development banks, which includes the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, the African Development Bank, EBRD, the Inter-American Development Bank, and the Islamic Development Bank, working closely also with Financial Alliance for Women and OECD. And then we're also have a number of global signatories already who are supporting the global code. Many of them are here. For example, the World Savings and Retail Bank Institute, Standard Chartered, Women's World Banking, UN Women, Financial Sector Development. And we also have support from the Gates Foundation and the Visa Foundation for doing some of the global work. And as you can see here, we have over 20 countries that we're working with to introduce the code through our partners and through others. And we continue every day to learn about countries that are interested in moving forward with the code. So we really see this as something that will continue to grow. And it's an open platform. Any country can join the code if they kind of follow the basic framework. So this is something we're really excited about. And excited to be working with many of you on this. So I'd like to turn to the panel. And the panel represents really the champions that we have in the countries. And what I'd like to say about the role of champions is that all of us have the opportunity to be champions in our country. And it allows us to take the work that we're doing here at the institutional level up to become a systemic change program. So really to think about how do we move from the individual, the institutional, to the national, to the systems level change to really make a difference for women entrepreneurs around the world. So I would like to introduce our three panelists and get into the questions. First, CHANTAL KORTEWEG, who we've worked with very closely. And CHANTAL has just been such a great role model of how an individual in a financial institution, in ABN AMRO in her case, can really take this idea of the code and galvanize the whole sector around it, leveraging her position in ABN AMRO as the Director for Inclusive Finance, and really has helped build this into an amazing movement in the Netherlands. So we'll hear from her. We'll also hear from DALMA Hernandez, who in just this short, like 9-month period, has worked with her colleagues in the Bankers Association of Dominican Republic to have this movement kind of catch like wildfire in DR, and we'll hear a little bit more about that. And NADIA SAEED, who you all know very well, is a board member of the Financial Alliance for Women and the CEO of Bank Etihad. Has been a long-standing champion of women and women entrepreneurs in her market, and is now taking that expertise and the important role that the Etihad has had to really prove that this is an important segment for Jordan and taking it now onto the national stage. So we thank all of you for being here. So what I wanted to start out with and get your views on the why. Why introduce the code? Why is it important for you as an individual, as an institution, and as a country to launch the code and to move it forward? So I'll start with CHANTAL.
Well, to my mind, each and every country should have this code. I think it's crucial to establish public-private partnerships. I think that's the only way that we can really make a change. And I'd been following the Investing in Women Code and Julie's work for quite some time, for a couple of years. So when I was at ABN AMRO and started off with the inclusive banking mandate of the bank, I quite quickly thought we need to expand this to the whole of the Netherlands, to the whole financial sector and beyond. And I think we're making good steps in terms of progress. And it's much necessary because in the Netherlands we have, of all entrepreneurs, 38% is a woman entrepreneur, which is not too bad. But if you look at the available financing, less than 10% of the available financing goes to women entrepreneurs. And less than 2% of the available venture capital goes to female founders. So the goal is really to equalize the financing.
And I think that's such a incredible data point because I work out of the World Bank and we work with developing countries, and there you do see these numbers of very, very low numbers of women being financed. But for that to be the case also in a country like the Netherlands, it really opens up your eyes to the systemic nature of this challenge. So Dalma, why don't we go to you? And same question, why? Why is this important for DR?
Well, for us, this WIFI code represents a commitment to financial inclusion, and also strengthening our capabilities as a country to support women entrepreneurs. So all of this is possible because we have the support of the Financial Alliance for Women, we have the support of IDB Invest, we have the support of our banks that decided to take this step, and also the leadership of our president, Rosanna Ruiz, that is here in the audience. And so because of that, us as a country, we took it seriously. We took it as a national strategy and an opportunity to work together with the government and demonstrate once again the direct impact of all of us together working for one goal. So this is how we took it in the country. We took it seriously.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And we'll hear more about it, but what really struck me is that the goals were embraced by everybody, right? It really was not just, okay, I or one institution had that goal, but as soon as it came up as an idea, everyone embraced it together. So it was really exciting to see that catch on. Nadia.
For us, actually, it makes a lot of sense. Why would we do it? For the same reasons that we started the whole journey, actually. For us, on a national level, this is very important. Job creation in Jordan is quite crucial. It's a very young population. Women are highly educated, yet the participation in the workforce is very low. It's actually maybe the lowest in the region, which is a shame. And MSMEs constitute 98% of the economy. The women-led are actually 25% of those. So the opportunity and the impact is very important. And for us, I mean, like, we've always been an ecosystem builder. We really believe that a bigger pie is better for everyone. Mm-hmm. And in many disciplines in today's world, you cannot do things alone. You need the ecosystem. You need the readiness around you. And when you put the slides, I mean, like, leadership, action, and data. Isn't everything about that? I mean, like, isn't that what we have been doing since we started? And for us, the leadership and action have been sort of progressing faster. The data is the toughest one, though the data is the most important one to unlock the business case and to actually create that sort of acceleration and ecosystem impact that we're talking about. So it is something that you can always learn from, especially that in certain economies, the national data might lag, and more so the gender or the disaggregated data, because it hasn't been captured except maybe for recently and maybe not in a comprehensive way. So learning from 20 countries who have done that is going to be amazing. Mm-hmm. And the other angle to that, I would say that in today's world and with the digital transformation and with AI being deployed everywhere, everything is data-driven. So basically, data is the core of everything that we're doing. I mean, at the bank, like, we started deploying AI in many disciplines, and the opportunity, the upside we see in actually personalizing products and services and in giving personal experiences, customer experiences that would address everyone with really what they need is huge. This is the future, and this is the biggest opportunity that will come. And with that, data will be sort of the anchor to that. And the last thing I would say is that, and we were talking about this Monday in the board meeting, is that, you know, like, being able to access such data, be it the data that will come from Wi-Fi or the data that we get from the Alliance, is a great opportunity because it is unbiased data. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, like with AI, I was saying that everyone will buy data sets, but those data sets will be biased. They're not going to be inclusive to women. Mm-hmm. So you're going to get the wrong conclusions out of that. Mm-hmm. So with that access to such more sensitized data, this is going to be a great opportunity, we hope.
Great, and I want to circle back on the data question in a moment, but I want to go back to this ecosystem question that you raised. And you know, 2 years ago, Alison Rose spoke about the work that they had done on this and talked about it being a non-competitive sport. And so I think that's really important to go beyond, the individual institution that has been really in the trenches trying to figure out how to solve the problem for women, the issues for women, to looking at this as a systems approach. And the code really aims to bring together as many members of the financial sector as possible. So I wanted to ask each of you, what's your strategy for onboarding, this large number of financial institutions as part of the code? How do you talk to other financial institutions? How is it kind of part of the conversations that are being had in your country? And what advice would you give to others who want to play that role of really trying to catalyze this coalition?
Yeah, so that was a journey, a bumpy road, and it takes some perseverance, I think. And there were disappointments. So we, in the Netherlands, we don't have a British business bank like they have in the UK. Our banking association was interested, but not super. But then we had the Private Equity and Venture Capital Association. They were very supportive. The political environment is quite fragmented in the Netherlands, so I had 5 ministries involved, which is not that helpful, but takes a lot of love and tender and care, I would say. So I think the breakthrough was really when we got around with the 2 other largest banks in the Netherlands and some private equity and venture capital players, and one of the ministries, and we set up a working group. And we decided to split the working group also per topic into sub-working groups, and gave a lot of room for people in those sub-working groups to design the solutions to the code. And of course we had this fantastic example from the UK, which was a big inspiration, but it also meant that people could think about the solutions themselves around data, around the mission, and what are we working towards, and what is actually success of Code V. It's called Code V in the Netherlands, V for vrouwen, women. And last Monday we onboarded 19 new signatories, so we're at 83 at the moment. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, but I think that the trick was really to gather these working group members and to give them some room to maneuver and come up with their own kind of solutions and things to work on. Also around research. So we have universities and professors involved in the initiative. We have Deloitte, who will be gathering the data for us, because I thought that the Dutch Banking Association could do that, but they didn't agree to that. So we had to come up with some creative solutions, I would say. And the Erasmus Center of Entrepreneurship is liaised to the University of Rotterdam, is also very much into research. And so a lot of in-kind contributions, also from a law firm. So they provided the whole drafting and the admin and the setting up of the foundation. So I think governance is another point of attention. We thought about governance very carefully with the working group, and we set up a foundation. We have appointed a managing director. We ask for fees pro rata from our signatories to make it a sustainable business model. And I think that has really contributed also to becoming a professional initiative in the Netherlands, which is now also attracting new players who are finding us. We have a website, a logo. So yeah, it takes some time, but it's worth the effort, I would say.
Mm-hmm. It's been just fascinating watching it and seeing the innovations that you've added to the code from what we've seen also in the UK. And I think one of the important things about the model is it's very flexible, so countries can really adapt it to their own context. We want to make sure that it really fits with what they've already got happening in their country.
Yeah, and perhaps one last thing to add. I think in our governance model, we also established a panel of women entrepreneurs who we talk to on a regular basis to kind of keep validating if we're providing the right solutions and we're solving for their problems. And that it might also be an interesting feature for you.
Thank you. So Dalma, how did it come about in in Dominican Republic to bring all the financial institutions together?
Well, for us, we implemented two main actions. The first one was to aim directly to the highest level. That's why last year during the summit, when we launched the code, you could see the president of our country there with us, supporting us. And that high level collaboration set a precedent and also sent a message about the importance of the code. Also, we actually, since the beginning of the code, since the day one, we knew that we were going to do it, that we were going to do it, we established ongoing meetings with the regulators so they can participate from day one, constructing the code with us. And an advice I can give to any of you that are thinking about starting this process is to identify the allies first that you can work with and include all the key stakeholders from the beginning. Also to structure a shared vision of all the objectives you want to achieve. And if it's possible, to map all the initiatives that your country already have that are on tackling the MSMEs or women-led MSMEs, because they can be an accelerator when you want to implement it in your country. Mm-hmm. Like for us, during that mapping, we realized that the country had a database of all the enterprises led by women. So what I want to say is that through collaboration and open communication is the way we can build this beautiful code.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I think that's a great point, that the code really builds on existing systems in the country. It's not meant to compete or replace things that are already happening. It's meant to kind of provide a framework that should fit in these different efforts and allow for new efforts also to take place.
Bring all together.
Yeah, Nadia, how about things in Jordan? How are you seeing the?
For us, they're evolving. We're starting this, but I share a lot of what the ladies have said. But for us, I would say that the approach with the regulators, and especially the central bank, would really be from from a national interest, because they are actually very much plugged into the national agenda. And gladly, gender made its way to the economic vision of the country in the last cycle. And it's been like in the past couple of years, there has been a lot of focus, and there has been focus on the gender pillars being cross-cutting to different sectors, which we've seen for the first time from the government point of view. So basically, I hope that this will help us accelerate. Mm-hmm. And in general, our regulator, the central bank, is very progressive, and they have set a lot of very high benchmark for digital inclusion targets. Mm-hmm. And actually, they have been able to move the needle on many fronts, like the evolution that happened in Jordan on payment and digital and so on has been remarkable. Mm-hmm. So I hope that this will be also something that they will see value in, and I'm sure they will. Of course, in general, the only, let's say, considerations for any governmental entity would be just making sure what they're getting into, if it has any like legal liabilities, and there's always the concern of, okay, if we request the data, is it ready? Can people provide it, and so on? But for me, actually, that would be the bullet, the silver bullet. If the central bank will request it, the banks will provide it. Mm-hmm. I mean, like it's always the case. We venture into new things like green lending, sustainability, etc. Whenever the regulator requests that data, the banks find a way to provide it. And of course, they give a grace period. They give you some time for you to be ready to do that. And I think there are a couple of other entities, government, public sector entities and regulators in the country who have shown similar interest, like the Security Commission in Jordan and the Stock Exchange, etc., have also been showing interest in this area. So collectively, that would be great. On the private sector front, for us as banks, going through the Association of Banks has been the best way always, but of course in non-competing things. And this is a case where it's not competing and where if the pie is bigger, it's bigger for everyone. And I think that also going through the credit bureaus makes a lot of sense because they also have a lot of data and you'll have to see what we have. And definitely we have to include the microfinance. And I share what Dalma said in the sense of we always find allies and we start with them. Some of them are banks, some of them are in non-banking sector, and you build that sort of critical mass and momentum and you move forward. And definitely I also share the angle of going through partners. Choose the partners who are already in the space, don't reinvent the wheel, support them, make them bigger, and that works fastest and puts things on the ground, actually.
Yeah, I think this illustrates very well that different countries can have different approaches in terms of who's doing the data aggregation, who's doing the primary outreach. So, we're really excited to see, how different models roll out. Let me move on to the data question, which I know is always a big question. And if you could each talk a bit about the data journey. Where are you today? We know that often, different financial institutions have different data. Regulators have mapped out data in different ways, or some are not, really thinking about gender. Some have gotten quite far advanced. So where are you on the data journey today? And what are your goals in terms of the data journey in your countries?
Yeah, so I think we spent a lot of time on the data, on the definition of women SMEs, but also on distinguishing the data collection for the banks and NBFIs and the private equity and venture capital organizations. So we have two kind of similar and different sets of data for them. I think people generally are frightened of data. So what helps is to offer this 1-year grace period. And also what helps is to express that we're on this journey together and that we will help each other to gather the data. In the Netherlands, as I just pointed out, we have Deloitte and the Erasmus Center of Entrepreneurship who will do the data aggregation. I think the first year will not be perfect and a kind of a manual exercise, but we have the ambition to make it more API-based in the future. Yeah, and we'll have to see. So we have given everyone a year grace period, and we'll have this working group working together and learning from each other on how to collect the data. We built a dashboard on gender disaggregated data at ABN AMRO 3 years ago when we started with inclusive banking. So I'm pretty comfortable that we can take along the other banks in that journey. Yeah, I'm really kind of interested to see the first report. And also I'm quite relaxed about it. So I already said to people like, okay, well just share the data you have. It might not yet be complete, but then in year 2 it will be complete. So yeah, I think learning by doing, experimenting, giving each other a little bit of room to maneuver, that all helps in getting everyone comfortable around the data point.
Great, thanks. Ella?
Well, in our case, currently, and thanks to the consumer-centric team that is working with us in all this data journey, we actually just started the pilot with 11 of our institutions, of our banks. We chose 2 international banks, the 3 most biggest banks in the country, 1 bank that only works with MSMEs, and 1 bank that is only working with women. So we have a good representation over there. And we already have the 18 attributes that are going to help us to build the 5 indicators we have to report to Wi-Fi. But aside of those, our banks also identify 17 more attributes that they think it will be interesting to see in the dashboards with the Wi-Fi data. But I agree with Chantal, the data sharing might be the biggest challenge. And it's because banks historically have been taking care of their data. It's just how they are built. So it's a conversation that we need to have, how many times they need so they can understand and they can see the value of the Wi-Fi. I think that's...
Yeah, and also a lot of the point of collecting the data is so that the financial institutions themselves can use that data and really understand that. But it's also helpful for policymakers.
Absolutely.
So that they can help understand, they can understand really where the bottlenecks continue to be to support women entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we have been we've been on the data journey. We've been reporting since 2014, so we're close to 10 years, which makes it very meaningful. And you start to be able to understand more, and you start to be able to draw conclusions and understand consumer behavior from what is going on. And for everyone, it's good to know that this evolves. Even the kind of data you get, the complexity, the granularity of data that you're able to get, you understand more as you go. What can you also do, and so on. So I think it's a very important journey. Having said that, I think one consideration is that when you're talking about national data, you need to make sure that it's housed in a way. There are some compliance issues there.
Right.
You need to house it in a way where it's going to be maintained, it's going to be timely, it's going to be managed well, and it's going to be easy and accessible. And that entity can report, and people can have access to the data easily, which is, of course, something that maybe needs several entities to share costs to make sure you can maintain it. And last, I go back to my point of digital and AI, because many things that the ladies said in the FinTech panel yesterday resonate with me, and it's something that we have been seeing, where we're able to really understand fully what the customers are doing. I mean, everything, every click of a button, why, left, right, they paused, they didn't pause. So basically, you understand very well what the customers want. So the data gives you much more insight on what you can do, but it humbles you more of what is still possible. I mean, the upside is enormous if you really, if you really can harvest and leverage the data. The upside is huge, and that adds a lot to the business case, actually, and to making it more logical to other players in the market.
I want to add something. Actually, in the DR, from the moment we started the Wi-Fi code, we had the vision of, after the 2 years, all this information can pass to the regulator, and the Wi-Fi code can be just a normal part of the financial regulation in the country. So because of that, with the Superintendency of Banks, we are now working in a protocol so the banks can send the data to them, and then it can be analyzed by us and the Wi-Fi. So in that way, the system is already formed. So after the 2 years of the code, the banks can just continue working with the Superintendency of Banks, and it guarantees the sustainability of the project through time.
Great, thanks. And one of the things we'll be doing from the global level is also a data learning series with Financial Alliance for Women, so that any financial institution signing onto the code in their country will have access to virtual trainings on the data issues, so that and also not just a push of information, but learning from one another. So really helping peer institutions around the world understand what good practices are. So we're really excited to be working with Financial Alliance for Women on that. And then also at the global level, we'll be reporting annually on progress, so that we can see not only can the financial institutions learn about their own customers and the countries learn about what they're doing, but we can also see at the global level what the trends are in terms of financing for women. So it connects all the way up. I have one more question for the panel, but I think what I'll do is I'll go out for Q&A now, and then I'll ask them for their vision on the code in their country at the end. So I don't know who has the box or the mics, but I'll go here first, and then there, and then over here. Yeah.
Hello, Lizzie Duncan here from the Department of Business and Trade. I lead on the UK's Investing Women Code. So great to see this here today. I'm very impressed that you have 93 signatories, Chantal, signed up. What I wanted to ask you is, how have you driven that number in such a short period of time? What methods have you been using? Is it word of mouth? What have you done?
Yeah.
Right. And I think let's take a few questions first, and then we'll go to the whole panel.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Oh, yes. Hi, and thank you for an amazing panel and conversations. My name is Sophia. I work with the Central Bank of Nigeria. So my question to you is, what value do you see in a regulator driving this process? Do you think that's something that would probably sort of drive the process along further? You know, I'd just like to hear from you in terms of what value you see a regulator.
Great, thanks. Okay, you've got the mic.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Teresa Lawal, and I work for Development Bank of Nigeria. My question is kind of connected to the first question. So I appreciate the fact that, you know, there's a lot of work done in getting the signatures. But my question is, what is the value they see specifically requiring and relating to the data? And in addition, you said you charge fees. What are the fees used for? How do you think they're able to commit to those fees? They need to see value to commit to making those payments. I think I would really like to know about that. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have one more question, and then we'll go to the panel. Okay. You have it, right? You're
I
going.
can go
Okay.
ahead, yeah. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So my question is related to the second question. You talked about the regulator. I wanted to know, in your geographies, was the regulator active, dynamic, and fast-driven?
Okay, pointed question. So why don't we go to the panel, and then we'll do another round of questions. So Chantal, there was a question on your structure, your setup.
Okay, so I took note of them. I'll go through them really quickly, like Kirill wanted us to do with that. So driving the numbers up. So I think, to be honest, it was 83, not 93 yet. And we had 64 sign in December on the first ceremony where Wendy was there. And then 19 now. Yeah, I think it's all about kind of creating a buzz and also asking help from people. And so the working group members kind of in their own networks got more signatories. And I think the help of the Dutch Private Equity and Venture Capital Association was huge. And also some smaller signatories, which is fine, I would say. So, yeah, I think we really want to strive towards 100, 150. And in the coffee break, I was just telling Wendy that we're now also getting interest from other organizations who are, in Europe, we're very busy on implementing CSRD, so the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. And the largest hotel chain in the Netherlands called me and said, hi, well, can we sign the code, please? And perhaps you can use our hotels for events and meeting rooms for women entrepreneurs or something. So they were, you know, they're really thinking about implementing CSRD and scoring some points under S4. So I think that's an interesting driver, the regulation point. Okay, let's move on to the regulator. So I think the regulator in the Netherlands, I called them a couple of times. They're not involved yet. So they're not fast. They're not, what was your other? Yeah. But, you know, they will come into the initiative at some point. I'm sure of that. But it's taking a little bit longer in the Netherlands. Okay, well, that's fine. I do think it would be of value if they are invested and engaged. So, you know, I'll try and call them again next week or something.
You had to invite them to this activity.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, smart thinking. I'll do that next year. On the fees, so we did this kind of pro rata thing. So for the banks and the NBFIs, we said, depending on your number of FTEs, your fee goes up. So it's between 500 euros a year and 25,000. And then for the venture capital and private equity organizations, we did it dependent of assets under management. So and I think that, you know, people have skin in the game. If you ask for some kind of fee, they come to meetings, they are interested, they want to contribute, and they want to get value out of it because they're also investing in it. So actually, I would really recommend you to think about that, even if you might think it's not necessary. But we use it to pay the salary, for instance, of the managing director, to pay for the operational costs of the foundation, to pay for events, for communication, marketing. Yeah, we have to kind of sustain it ourselves, this initiative. And we're getting some kind of subsidy from the ministry also. Shall I hand over to
So I'd just say that's an interesting innovation that we hadn't contemplated, because in most of the countries, we see the aggregators and the coordinators being existing entities that have staff and budgets, whereas here they're creating a foundation to run the code, which I think is a really interesting innovation. But that's not necessarily the way every country will go, or most countries will go.
Yeah. I mean, we don't charge for that.
No, right.
But for us, about the regulator, because we don't charge, I think talking with you, I realize we are privileged because we have a regulator that is always there for us. We usually have meetings, meetings on different subjects. We usually are sharing data, sharing expectations, and working together. And they actually have a motive to be part of the Wi-Fi code because they want to use that data for public policy. So from both sides, there's benefits of using this data. And the regulator in DR is really active, especially with the Bankers Association. We work together in open banking, we work together in this Wi-Fi code, we work together on regulations. It's all one vision to help the country to ensure that sustainable development that we all want to.
Nadia?
Yeah, I think on the question for how important is it or what can the regulator do, I think they can add huge value. And in some countries maybe more than others, but in general, if the regulator requires anything, it happens. I mean, like when the regulator says report on green lending, it happens. And when they say, I want to see this percentage of your portfolio covering this or that, it happens. So it could be the game changer and it could be the accelerator. Otherwise, of course, there are other routes, but they won't be as efficient and as fast as that is. Maybe the other question on the value, how would you convince of value? I think really the main thing here is that, as I said earlier, everything is becoming data-driven. So everything we do, I mean, like if you want to serve any segments, if you identify any segment, you're willing to pay anything to get the data set, correct? I mean, like in today's world with AI, we're buying data sets. We're trying to see what's consumer behavior. We're trying to, like, we go to the credit bureaus and try to see what kind of data they have on demographics, on locations, on income levels, etc., for you to build a value proposition. And I think that's the main selling point, because in today's world, people stop shooting in the dark. I mean, like, and if you do that, I think you will not get anywhere. In the future, you'll not have a place if you do that. Everything has become so data-driven.
Great. So let's do another quick round of questions, and then we'll do the final wrap-up question on vision. Okay. I see 3 right here in a row.
Yes. From Access to Finance Rwanda. Wanted to understand the kind of data you collect. Is it supply-side data, or you also actually add demand-side data? Because the demand side really brings a lot of insights. And if that's the case, I'm looking for an opportunity to collaborate in Rwanda and other markets on FinScope. I think we do a lot of MSME FinScope surveys on the demand side. Thank you very much.
It's great to hear that you're looking to collaborate, because Wendy, my question is, and it's kind of linked to Chantal's really scaling up in Holland. What's your ambition? You know, what do you think about really scaling around the world, and how could we help you do that faster, better?
Hi, my name is Maria. I'm the EBRD policy coordinator for the Western Balkans. The region where I come from is aspiring to become an EU member state, and of course we are looking up for the examples from the EU. And it seems like the Dutch example is the unicorn there. I would like to ask Chantal, what would you determine as would you determine EU policies as accelerators for the Wi-Fi code implementation, and how some of the EU policies have triggered implementation mode of the finance code, like, for example, the data protection policy and the gender action plan and so on, because it will be important for us to learn from the European experience and find leverage for the central regulators to become more interested. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So let's do just a quick response on that, and then we'll kind of give our vision statements, and I can take one of the questions also on the vision. Yeah, but go ahead.
Okay, so on the demand and supply data side question from Rwanda, I think in the Netherlands we want to do both. So the banks and the private equity and venture capital organizations will provide their portfolio data. So how many women entrepreneurs in their books, what's the volume of the loans, things like that. And then we will enrich the report with data from the demand side. So, and the Erasmus Center of Entrepreneurship has a role to play in gathering that data and providing us with research and insights on the demand side. So hopefully we can present a report with both sides of the data. In terms of scaling, so to my mind, we need to have a European Investing in Women code. That would be scaling in Europe, in my view. Yeah. And then I think on the how can European policies be an accelerator. So I think, CSRD is a European form of legislation, which in my view is helping in terms of getting us up and running and organizations being interested. On the data protection side, I think we are collecting disaggregated, anonymized data. So that is fine according to all the bank's kind of data protection policies, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't really see a hinder there. I'm also not quite sure how they can accelerate everything on this. So perhaps that's something you can take on.
DALMA?
For us, I think Wi-Fi code unlock a series of other initiatives. Wendy already knows in the DR that are for helping the MSMEs to develop. One of them is working with the payment of the taxes commitments through credit card for MSMEs. Only one payment per month of all their taxes responsibilities. Like the president of the association says, it's like a gym subscription, because every month they're gonna retire that money from your account. And also we have several projects to tackle the MSMEs sector in DR. We're working in a guarantee fund for them, so the banks can reduce the risk. Just deciding on taking just 50% of that risk, and then the other 50% of the risk goes to the fund. And also providing digital firm to those MSMEs. So, and many others. I can stay here the whole afternoon telling you about that. So I think supporting the Wi-Fi, to support this, to be more active, is this kind of initiative. Just seeing from your side, how can you help? It's not to do the same, but with what you have, how can you help? How can you develop something? How can you make something more efficient, or help this MSME sector led by women that is not being seen by anyone? So
we have a flashing light right now. So Nadia, your final, any responses to the questions, and then your vision for the code in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I would say, I think I will only comment on the demand side, actually. I would say that's very, very important. Of course, everyone starts with the supply side because it's more institutional. It's the easier sort of to collect. But that angle is very, very important. On one level, I would say that our regulator actually already asks all the banks to report on number of applications, approvals, denials, etc., on many products and services. So it gives a little bit of insight. But what I would say further to that is that it's so important because, especially when you add to it the fact that Generation Z is a different consumer. Actually, the team and I were in another discussion on something else that has to do with payment. And it struck us what we saw in terms of how this generation thinks of work differently, work style is different, how they travel differently, how they socialize differently. So I would say the demand side is so crucial to everything, and I'm sure to this angle as well, because without that, you'll be creating products and services that people don't want. And the purchasing power is moving to that generation. So you really need to get insights of demand for you to be really ready for what's coming.
Yeah, I want to say something. Something that really works is that you can bring into your team institutions that have historically worked with this sector. For example, for us, we have Banco BHD or Banco BHD and Banco ADOPEM, and they have historically they have been working with women, MSMEs, and that economic sector. So every problem that we usually encounter to develop, we just go to them, and they already have that experience.
Yeah.
So.
Chantal, final words on your vision?
Yeah, so I think I will not rest until we have equalized the financing in the Netherlands. And I think that is the right thing to do, but also the smart thing to do, because there's just this huge commercial business case which we're gonna capture.
Great. So, and just to answer the question about the global ambition for the code, I think right now, and I have OECD in the back of the room, there's only a couple of countries that are actually reporting data on how much financing is going to women. So we see that, and also the IMF Financial Access Survey also has very few countries that are actually able to report this. So every year, we should be able to see a significant increase in the number of countries that are actually able to report this data by gathering the information from the bulk of the financial institutions in their countries. And that will be the output of the code. I mean, if we can see that not rising 1 or 2 countries a year, but 10 or 15 countries a year, and ultimately having it be a global standard so that it's a normal thing for countries to be able to report. We'll all have it. We'll all know what's happening with financing for women entrepreneurs. That's really the vision. So how can you all help make the code successful in your countries and share that with other parts of your networks? I mean, banking is a global network, and we have MasterCard here and others that work globally and everywhere, and this can become a viral kind of exercise where the work in one country or with one institution can really spark the code in other countries as well. The code is a global framework. It can be picked up by any country, anywhere. Global partners can sign on. So we really see this as something that can go global. We hope we'll go global and that we can work with all of you to make that happen. So thank you very much to my panel. Thanks to all of you, and we'll look forward to working with you.